Lee at Chaz Lodge here with another repair video for you, and on the bench today we've got this. It's a SONY Hi-Fi System. It's been sent to me with please repair this. Various things don't work on it, specifically the tape deck. That's going to be our main cause of a problem, and I'll show you why, but also the multi CD changer. Now, in order to get the okay from the customer to make a go-ahead on this, otherwise I wouldn't have been making the video. In order to get the go-ahead from the customer, I've had to do a little bit of internal research, and to get the turntable, basically the mechanism had jammed up, so a little push on the mechanism inside actually got it working. So that part of it is okay, although it's still got problems. That bit is not as bad as it was. However, the main problem, if I show you inside, is with the cassette deck. So let's just swing the old camera over there and zoom in on that. Let's move the old ribbon cable out of the way, and you can probably see already, if I can get this ribbon cable out of the way, down in here we have the motor which sits there, and all wrapped around the motor is a whole load of gunk, where all the drive belts have basically turned to goo. So that's basically what I've got to do. I've got to get this mechanism out, clean it all up and replace the drive belts. Now the as I said, the turntable, that's underneath, so that's going to be a different case. It is working, but it's a bit intermittent, so I'm guessing probably lubrication with the mechanism on there, but also when a CD is playing, and it does play CDs, it's going as though something's rubbing all the time. So it's going to be a case of stripping that down. So the biggest problem we've got at the moment is getting this whole cassette deck out of here, and it's held in place on the front panel by some screws, but I'm guessing really that the best way of getting to that is going to be to take this whole front panel off, to take the whole front assembly away from the main body, to get that out so that we can get at the cassette deck inside. So looking at this, it doesn't look like it's going to be that easy. The screws that are holding the cassette deck against this, two I can get at, so I could remove those, but the other two are basically right down deep in there. It's going to be very difficult to get at. So I'm going to have a quick scout of the service manual, which I managed to get hold of a copy of, and just have a quick look and see if there's a simple dismantling procedure for this, and then I'll come back to the video when we try that. Right, so having consulted the manual, there is a workflow in there of dismantling it, and basically to get the front panel off, we've got one screw here and a couple of screws on the underside. Now the other thing I'm going to do is just disconnect connection cables between the front panel and so on. So we've got ribbon cables, fairly easy, they just pull out. So I'm going to disconnect that ribbon cable from that side panel. Then we've got a cable here and a cable here, and some grounding cables which are on screws, which not necessarily the easiest things to get at, but also we've got another ribbon cable there. I'm going to disconnect it from this side, from the front, so those can stay in the main board, and that can be tucked in there out of the way temporarily. Okay, it's not going to stay out of there temporarily. We'll put some tape on that, that'll be all right. So let's get that earth screw out there. So that's releasing two grounding cables on the front. And then we've got some more here as well. more there. Got wire wraps holding this one in place. There's a thin ribbon cable which comes up to here, which we should be able to just gently ease off of there. Another bit of ribbon there, wire wrap rather. So that's that one off, and another one here. Luckily I can get hold of the whole plug on these rather than yanking the wires. So those of you who have watched my videos before will know that I don't like pulling wires on plugs like some people do. I like to get hold of the plug if possible. So on this particular one that's down the board here, I need to be able to get hold of the plug. It's all too easy to rip the wires actually out of the plug, and then it's a devil's of a job to get them back in again. I'm having difficulty getting hold of this plug. So let's see if I can just use the edge to lever that plug up. There we go. Just managed to grip it with my little plug pullers. So that's those cables, that's those cables. Let's turn it on the side. And we get some screws out from underneath. Now, according to the manual, this should all now come away as one complete unit. Of course, there is something holding it on that corner, but what? There is another screw, a hidden screw by the look of it, through a hole. Yes, interesting that one. There's a hole here with a screw going through. Now I don't remember seeing that on the diagram. Just have a quick little look. Four screws, plug. Nope, doesn't show it on the diagram. So Mr. Sony manual person, you missed that one out. Probably it's one well known to Sony engineers who've had to fix these things. And there's our screw. So now we've got the whole front panel off, and we can get at the the tape deck mechanism a lot easier. So hopefully we can extract that from there. So I'm just going to pop this down here for now and move the rest of this beastie off to one side. The beauty of having that removed is that we can now get at all of this mechanism under here and give it a good clean. It's absolutely dusty. Interesting. Let's just have a little look at this over and above with the camera. Interesting, we've got something number 1M, whatever that means. Possibly previous engineers worked on this in some way, I don't know. Anyway, let's first off, I just see a nice big wodge of fluff. I like to get wodges of fluff out of the way. And then we'll just remove the deck by taking these 4 screws out. Compared to some pieces of equipment, this is reasonably easily to get at and fix. I probably need to open that cassette door, press the eject button on the front. There it is, and the whole mechanism just pops out. Lovely. Okie dokie, so this is where we're going to get a bit mucky, because we have got a right old mucky gungy mess in there. Right, well, I've got the mechanism out, and I've got the camera focused now, and as is always, when you go to focus a camera, you run a bit of software and it says I need to update it, so hence the cut there. So what we've got now is the mechanism with the big chunk of gunk here in the middle, and I think the easiest way to tackle this, rather than try and piece all that out, I'm going to remove the motor from this housing, and the way that I can do that, by the look of things, is with it's held in place by several screws, 1, 2, and I think there's another one, but it's hidden underneath the yeah, there's one there. Now whether that's a screw, no, in fact I'm moving it, so that post there is just a holding post. So I'm going to get my screwdriver in there and get this motor out, but I'm going to need to desolder the motor from the board first. So let's just do that. I think just desolder braid will do the job. And I think I can hear the postman coming, so be prepared to stand by for the postman. Okay, so 1 screw out, 2 screws out. We should be free now. There we go. And there's the motor with all the gunk safely removed. So we've got 1 screw that didn't come all the way out. Let's just pop that out and get rid of it. There we are. Okay, now engineer's best friend, kitchen roll. Another piece for my hand. So let's see, can we get this dry belt gunk off as one big lump? Sometimes it will come away. Look at that. Ah, yes, it is. If you're doing this, getting rid of this gunk, try not to get it on your fingers, because it gets absolutely everywhere. Wonderful. That's 2 of the dry belts off. Now, normally I would say, if you're going to do something like this, wear gloves. The only thing is, with wearing gloves, is this stuff gets sticky on gloves, and it actually spreads more. So I find it's easier to get it off your fingers than it is to wear gloves. So, all right, isopropyl alcohol. Give that a good wash. There we are. Nice clean pulley. Wrap up all the gungy stuff and stick it in the bin. Now the other side of here, we've got two drive belts that are still in place, but both of which are, as you can see, on their way out. So we need to very, very gently take these off of here for two purposes. Gently, so we don't pull it and make them break and therefore get all slimy, but also we can use them for measurement of a replacement drive belts that we're going to need to fit on here. There's two very gungy drive belts. Now thankfully the rest of the pulleys etc. all look to be fairly clean. There is a little bit of gunge on here, and the actual flywheels also are quite good. So we've got two capstans because they're both decks are bi-directional. So we need to just clean off these capstans. Clean the pinch rollers as well while we're at it. Now these work by the way these mechanisms work, as there's a solenoid on both sides. So what happens is that depending on the mode that the mechanism goes into, let's just move those out of the way before I put my fingers on them, is that this mechanism, this flywheel here, has got a gear wheel attached to it, and as you can see, if you turn that wheel round, that gear wheel turns, but now it's not turning, it's just spinning as though it's a flywheel. But what happens is, under certain conditions, this little solenoid pulls and engages or disengages the mechanism. So at the moment it's stopped, so if I pull that up, you see the mechanism changes position, so it's now in play mode that way, and if I pull it up, keep turning that one, it's gone into probably fast forward because the pinch roller is disengaged. Another little pull as it's turning shifts it another position, shifts it back down to stop, another position takes it back up to that one, and so on. So it's a case of and sometimes it's two clicks, and sometimes yeah, so it says one short click and it goes into one direction, another click and it goes into fast forward, another click it goes into rewind probably, and then another click it goes into stop, and then another click it goes back into play, and then one long click holds it and it flips the other way. So that's the way these mechanisms work. So that mechanism all seems to be working right. Let's see if we can do the same with this one. I can get my finger on the solenoid. A little bit more awkward, this one. Right. So one click goes into there, another click, fast forward, another click, rewind, another click, stop, long click. No, didn't hold it long enough. There we go, long click puts it into play the other direction. So it's quite a clever little mechanism. All relies on the gearing on these two wheels and this solenoid to click into place to trigger them into the right positions. So next thing we need to do is find some drive belts. So have a look here. So we've got one drive belt here which seems to be about the right sort of diameter, and as does that one, although the actual belt size is a little bit big. I'm just going to have a quick squeeze through here, see if I've got the same diameter but thinner drive belts. I've got quite a selection of drive belts, but I may have to get some others. Now I've got a feeling these are probably better. They're just 40mm square, so they were just a generic drive belt. And they look like to be the right size as well, so I'm hoping those two are going to do the job. Let's move that out of the way. Let's just see. Now, just before I do, just realised on the pulleys here and there's a little bit of black marking, so I think another bit of cleaning is involved on this pulley. Let's see if that'll get in there with a cotton bud. It's probably just, it's not, yeah, I'm going to have to use a twizzle method of twizzling a bit of cloth around there just to make it thin enough to get in there. There we are, so we've cleaned off both of those. Let's see if we can get some drive belts to fit. So pop that over there. That should just drop down into the pulley. And it's not dropped down into the pulley onto the underside of the flywheel. Right. I've got a little hook. So just get that round there. Put that drive belt on. It looks to be a good fit. Same with this one. And luckily it's just dropped straight onto the pulley. Use that to flip it round because it's running true. That's good. So we should now be able to pop this into one of the modes, and there it's driving the take up as well. One quick flip and it's fast forward, another quick flip, that should go into, yeah, didn't go into rewind as I thought it probably would. Let's play it. Play it. Now, there's a pulley here. Is that just a guide? That's a guide, I think. So how does it get to go into rewind, I wonder? I thought that's what... that's got to go over there. Right, okay. Yeah, like that's rewind, but I can't see what's pulling that over there. It's probably just another couple of quick clicks onto here or something which forces it into there. I'm not going to worry too much about that because I'm pretty sure that the mechanism is going to be okay in that respect. Right, so we've got those two drive belts on. Whilst we've got it open, let's just in no mode, let's just clean off the rest of this stuff. So we'll just use a damp cotton bud just to get rid of the dust. Head to the guides, and this is obviously just a playback deck because there's no record head. It's a playback only, there's no erase head on there. So let's just give this a dust off. Just realised it wasn't in view of the camera. Anyway, doesn't matter. The rest of the dust, brush off that way. And a quick blow. Right, so I think we've pretty much done that bit, so we've just got to find drive belts now to go on the tape deck. Now these are going to be flat drive belts, and they've got to go. Let me just have a little look at the diagram. There's a diagram in the manual which I will put on screen to show you. So there we can see the drive belts, and it shows the mechanism. Let's have a look. It's showing the mechanism that way round. Yep. So we've got large drive belt 452 and 453 and 452. So there's two of the same and one slightly different. So there's three drive belts we need. We've already done the two labelled 458 there. They're two are done. So we've got to find 3 drive belts for 452 and 453 to get them on into position. So they should, when we get them into position, they should go around and around. This one goes round and goes round that pulley there, so it's got to go round there and back, and this one's got to go round there and back, and that one's got to go a secondary round one. So we want 3 drive belts of the same length, of which may be not easy, because all my drive belts, I think, that are flat are going to be difficult to find. So I've got 64mm flat drive belts for cassettes, of which I've got 3. Now these were fairly standard in their day for a lot of cassette decks, but that may be for larger pulleys, etc. So just have another look at that diagram again. Let's make it slightly bigger for you. So one has got to go around the pulley. So it goes round. Yeah, okay. So what it does is, on this one, it goes round that flywheel. Capacitor in the way there. Goes around that flywheel and around that flywheel and goes onto that. And now that is definitely too tight. If I was to fit that one, that's going to be far too tight. So it needs to be longer than 64mm. Let's get rid of that gunk that's on there for a minute. I realise we've got a little bit of gunk on there. Okay, so at least we know that 64mm is not enough. So I would guess another 4mm, so a 68mm drive belt should probably do it. So that's a 64, and the other one, these have got to be much longer still, because they've got to go around there and it's a lot further across. So 68 for that one, and presumably the same. Just have another look at that diagram. So 452, so 452 goes, I see. So that one goes around there and goes on to that. That actually may work for that one. So that's the bottom 453. That's this one here. And 452, that one goes round there and onto there. So it's like basically one pulley pulling 2. Just sit that down there. Well, actually that one seems to fit okay there. So I did look online. There's a guy doing drive belts for this model but he wants 30 quid for them, which, you know, it's understandable, but I still think 30 quid is, you know, too much money to pay for a drive belt when you can buy a pack of drive belts off eBay for a tenner. So I'm just gonna go with that 64mm. I'm gonna see if that is too much tension on that motor. Let's just try it. I'm just going to pop this on here just for now. Oh, I think actually that's going to fit. That's going to fit. I think we're going to get away with those belts because they're not excessively tight when they're in place. They're just tight enough. So I'm going to go with another one of these belts. 64. Now it's probably going to be just a touch too tight, but hopefully it will be good enough. So now I'm going to put the motor back on first and then hook those underneath. I think I can do that. Maybe I ought to get that one on first, yeah. Get the screw holes lined up. Drop the screws in. I had it lined up. Okay, one in. Right, 2 screws are in. Now that one's obviously too loose, so that belt is going to be no good. I'm going to have to take that one off because that's too loose. But that's the belt. If we look at things, that's the way the belt has got to be. This one's got to be on the bottom, so the one that's got to be replaced, that's too loose, has got to go on first. I'm not going to be able to swap them over. So that one there is not 64 millimeters. Now okay, I'm just going to have to release the screws just slightly. That one I'm going to release, and then this one I'm going to take out. And I can swing that motor around there and get that out. So I need to get a smaller belt than that one. That's 64 millimeters. And I think I'm a little bit on the stuff side, slightly smaller flat belts. No, that's too long. Just have a look in this one again. I'm not sure if I've got a smaller flat belt. At least I know what size I need to get. Yeah, these are all. None of these are flat belts. So that's a shame. I'm going to have to call a halt on that. That's too long. Okay. So we now know what belts we need to order. There's no flat belts in there, was there? I did buy a pack of belts not so long back for another job. That comes from China. Whole selection of dry belts. 3 packs for a tenner. So I think they were off Amazon. Unfortunately, that job, let's just say the customer didn't want to pay to have his thing repaired. He thought, oh, you're a tinkerer. Tinkerers just fix things for fun. Well, I can tell him that that is not the case. Yes, I tinker. I tinker to fix my stuff for fun. But when somebody says, oh, this needs fixing, I can't get it fixed elsewhere, and that's where my trade comes in. But anyway, I won't go into that rant. So I'm going to get some more dry belts ordered. I'll be back on this video when I got some more dry belts in. Right, here we are with a new selection of dry belts. Basically, as you saw earlier on, I've managed to fit the little dry belts and 2 replacements. It took a little while to actually find the right supply of the right dry belts for this mechanism, but I believe I found the right one. But I have got a couple of alternatives just in case this one isn't correct. It's very unfortunate I couldn't find anywhere, a lot of research, the actual measurements of the dry belt for this mechanism, so I've had to work it out, and I'm pretty sure that this is a 57mm dry belt, 4mm wide. I did buy some the right length, but they were too narrow. They were only 2mm. They kept slipping off, so they wouldn't have been any good, so it had to be a 4mm dry belt. So if we have a look at the layout of the dry belts in the manual, we can see that we've got dry belts 452 and 452 here and here. They're fitted, and 458 and 458 here are fitted. So the one we wanted, which was 453, and that goes around this flywheel to the motor at the top of the pulley there. And that 453 dry belt is smaller than 452. Those two are longer. So hopefully we should, when we get this motor back off and have a look. Now the other thing that I've remembered from years ago is that a lot of these mechanisms, when they're assembled in the factory, they're not necessarily assembled by hand, they're assembled by machine. So a lot of the bits and pieces are putting pieces in place so that when other bits are dropped into it, those bits can be pulled back in. Now I'm not sure whether this is a manual operation, this final part or whatever, but if we have a look on the actual motor mounting here, if I bring the camera just a little bit closer in so you can see, on the mounting for the motor there's a little post here, and it's got like a little peg on it, and there's another one there. Let's get that in the camera shot so you can see there's another one there. So there's this one here, and around this side there's another one, another 2 here and here. Now what these are for, funnily enough, are for putting the drive belts into position before the motor is fitted. If we pop that drive belt off that pulley, like so, and then just pop it over that little peg, hopefully it should go on there without damaging it. So that means that the belt is in roughly the right place, ready for when it's assembled either by hand or by machine. So all I've got to do now, save that drive belt flipping off, is if I remove the motor, if I just unscrew the motor and pop that away, like so, you see the drive belt is actually in place. So the new drive belt that I've got to fit, I can pop over the flywheel that it's got to go on. Just tuck that behind those capacitors onto the flywheel, and then pop it round the post that it's got to go round, and then just drop it down onto this peg. Now this belt has got to go on the upper part of the pulley. So really and truly what we want is the other one held a little bit lower. So in fact what I'm going to do is I'm going to take it off that peg and pop it down that one, like so, and then put that one there like that. And that doesn't look right, does it? Because it's going to be driving again. Oh, hang on, no, the pulley's going to be there, so it's going to miss that post. I thought it was going to be catching on that post, but we've got it in that position there. So if I just pull it down a little bit more, so now when I pop the motor back in, I don't have to fiddle with trying to hold the belts out of the way of the pulley whilst I'm reassembling it. So I can pop the motor into roughly the right position and get at least one of the screws done up. Luckily one screw stayed in the top of the mounting post, so I can just get it to align. Come on, it's there somewhere. There we go. And get the other screw into there and pull the motor around. All right, so I've not tightened them up, but the pulleys are now in roughly the right position already. So all I've got to do is either tweezers or a little hook, is just basically get hold of the pulley, the belt, pull it into position, and it's in the right place. Do the same for the other one. And then all we've got to do in this particular one is just pull that up, so it goes round the other capstan there. So now I have got all the drive belts in the right place. That drive belt unfortunately has got a little twist in it, so let's flip that round. There we go. So now we should be absolutely right, and it looks good to me. Does it look good to you? I'm hoping that's going to be okay. Now unfortunately the one thing I can't do is test it in situ. I could put some volts in the motor, but just turning it round by hand, everything is turning nicely. There doesn't seem to be any flopping of the drive, whatever. So it looks like we've got the right drive belt for this position, and we've easily fitted it in. So if you're replacing drive belts where you've got a little bit of difficulty getting the drive belts around the pulleys of the motor, have a look for these little bits of plastic. They look like it's just part of the moulding or something like that, but it's actually done deliberately in the factory so that when the final assembly comes into place, bits can be put into place, you can reassemble it and pop it in. Makes the life so much easier. Well done to Sony or the engineer that designed that little bit of plastic. Let's just tighten up the motor screws. make sure they're nice and tight, and then we can go for a complete reassembly. So as that's a lot of fiddling around with bits and pieces, I'll cut back to testing it once I've reassembled the whole assembly on the bench here. Right, I've reassembled the cassette deck into the front of the chassis there. I haven't got any further than that, but I thought before I actually put all this back together, I'd tell you what I did in another moment where I didn't turn the camera on because I was just so full of doing various bits and pieces. It just didn't cross my mind to do it. Anyway, basically, if you remember that the turntable didn't turn, and I just gave it a little push when it was still assembled on this motor here, and it all worked. So I thought, obviously it's got to be something to do with that. So basically what I did, took this center screw out of here. That allows the whole turntable to be lifted out, and I just went round and cleaned the dust and dirt that I got into the rollers underneath the turntable and the center pin. Put a little bit of white moly slip grease onto the bearing here, and reassembled it, and I'm pretty sure that that's solved that. Whilst I was in there, because you have to drop all this out, and it's very big and bulky, you have to undo screws, this whole metal work, there's ribbon cables, etc. It's a bit awkward to get out, but it's simple. It's not really difficult. 5 screws all together and it all pops out. So whilst I had it all out, I gave the objective lens on the laser a clean with a dry cloth. That's nothing new. It's a simple repair on any CD player. Just clean the objective lens on the thing. Gave it a little bit of a blowout with some aeroduster, and reassembled it. So I don't know if that's going to make any difference, whether it's going to be any better or any worse. But if it works, it's done, because it wasn't working. That little push gave it a go. So let's see how it goes. I'm now going to do a complete reassemble. So let me just switch to the other overhead camera. There we go. Right. So basically what we've got to do is to reassemble this whole 2 halves. And just need to make sure that we get this bit into that bit as easy as possible. The metal work of this bottom tray here goes into underneath or on top of the plastic of that there. So it's really it could be a 2-man job, this, or a 2-person job. Are we allowed to say 2-man these days in our wonderful woke world that we're living in these days? Such a sad change of affairs. Anyway, that's another story that somebody will probably comment on. So got those bits pushed together. There's 3 screws. Oh, hang on, you can't see that bit. Let me go. There's 3 screws on this plate here. So let's get those 3 screws in there. Get the middle one in and just hold it together. There's 2 ground cables that have got to go in there. Let's pull that wire because that goes right over the other side. So whenever you're reassembling, always make sure you put all the wires back where they came from. I remember having to fix a repair years ago that somebody had put back together, and the complaint was that when turned on there was this loud buzz all the time, and it turned out that one of the wires that was connecting 2 parts of the mechanism together wasn't in place. Why isn't that going in there? Oh, it doesn't go in there. There's no hole in there. There's a piece of plastic there. Wonder why it won't go. There was no screw that went in there. Sometimes it may even be helpful to put a little mark where you actually take screws from if there's a potential for it not fitting together. So the next screws are the ones underneath. So I shall just gently tip it over. And just get the screws underneath. Now I'll just do quickly on here and show you that the metal work of one plate overlaps the plastic there, and there's a piece of metalwork there, little tabs, and that's where these screws are in. Let's just put one into there, like so. But just looking at that, obviously at some stage or other, where this has been pushed probably on a bench or something like that, that tab has been bent. So let's just get the screws in. It's not quite sitting proud of that plastic, so it shouldn't cause the end user any harm. But if I'd have noticed it earlier, I could have bent that back down a bit better. But the one thing I like to ensure at the end of any repairs that I do is that all my little plastic pots with all my screws in, they're all empty. I've put all the screws back where they come from. Now, something I've just realised, when I slid that mechanism out for the CD and put it back, this back panel should have engaged. Can't see it there. Should have engaged, and it didn't. So I'm just going to gently release these screws and see if I can maneuver it down so I can get that over. It's easier to take the 3 out of here and pull that bit down. I think maybe, yeah, just enough to push that in. There we go. Lovely. Whew. Good job I spotted that before I put everything else back together. I'm using the wrong screwdriver. Just to show you where I'm putting the screws on this side panel. This is where the CD mechanism resides, at the back here. There we are. And the screws that go in the back there, I might as well do those while I'm here as well. Right, that's one little tray of screws empty. So now we should be able to reconnect everything that needs to be reconnected. This cable here goes up into there and connects. There's a white cable that goes from the CD, from the front panel across to here. Clips into place there. We've got 2 earth screws which engage down there, so let's get a screw into there. We get it into one first and then the other one. Let's grab hold of the other one. Come on, come to daddy. Now, if I was unsure about this repair working first time, I think I would be tempted to try and reassemble this, and probably I could have run the whole cassette mechanism out of the front panel just by connecting up these 2 ribbon cables. I don't know. It may well have worked, but I'm just so confident. Yeah, shows you probably a little bit of arrogance, I suppose. Now I've got a cable that's not there. Where's that? There's a little cable that's, there it is. That should plug into there. But yeah, I'm given that the state of the deck mechanism was just dusty, there wasn't lots of grease and, you know, so bad that I feel it would have failed. But I'm pretty sure that doing this, I'm not going to have to take it all apart again. Right, everything's connected that needs to be connected. There's no wires hanging loose. There's nothing going to be shorting out on anything that shouldn't do. So I'm pretty sure, I'm pretty sure that we can now test it. So let's apply some power. Well, before we do that, let's connect some speakers so we can actually hear if we've got an end result. Okay. Let's take some test tapes. Turn the power on. I heard some whirring. Let's go to that camera and we should be able to do power on. We can see lights. The CD turntable is turning. Let's eject the two doors and put the tape, our good old test tape, into deck 1. I'll hit play. That tape deck is working. Wrong one, let's go to that one. Actually, we can go back to that one. Yeah, all seems to be running smoothly. Nicely. Let's go auto reverse to the other direction. Now, did you notice the little, let's turn it down a little bit, it's a little bit loud. Did you notice the little solenoid popping? Zoom into that a little bit more if we can. To there, that should be enough. So whenever you change function, the little solenoid pops up and down and engages the main gear wheel with the solenoid. So depending on what function is determined by the number of times it pops up and down. Yeah, like it. Let's stop that deck. Let's eject that deck. Take the tape out and try it in the other side. Not sure I like the design of that. I would have liked some mechanism that pushed the tape a little. It's so difficult to get your hand in there. But there we are. Good bits and bad bits of design. Oh, I just noticed some dust there, so that hit the stop button with. Obviously the dusty bit I didn't do earlier. Okay, go back the other way. Okay, so one other test that we need to do, and that's just to make sure that the tape deck is running at the right speed. Several ways to do that. I could connect up the oscilloscope, which I've got here, which has got a built-in frequency counter. Pop that across the speaker terminals and see the sound level of a test tape with a test tone on it, which is what we've got here. More simply, grab your phone and install a program, an app rather, called Frequency Counter. Where is it? Frequency Counter, there it is. So this is a handy little frequency counter app. I may have shown this in videos before, but if you just pop your test tone tape, if you've got one, there we are, 3 kilohertz. Well, I don't know put it, which way round I put it. Let's play it that way. Hold it up to the speaker. I'll turn the sound up a bit. That's saying 2.9 kilohertz or thereabouts. So it's about right. Probably is within the tolerance of human hearing. Let's just pop it into this side and press play on this one. Well, that's a 1 kilohertz tone. That's saying 900. That should be 3 kilohertz. And it's a little bit. Right, so that's one way of testing it. Let's test it the official way with the oscilloscope. So with the oscilloscope, quite simply, all you need to do is to connect your oscilloscope on AC connection across the speakers. Right, so trigger onto edge. Let's play the tape. Go auto. There we go. So we've got a fairly stable and we need to get measure for frequency, which is 2.96 kilohertz. But anyway, we're seeing on here fluttering around 2.9 kilohertz. Right, so a little bit difficult to obviously see the scope over there. The frequency counter on the phone isn't brilliant. Let's have a look at the scope on screen. Let's see, and we can see on here. This is the scope through the computer, and we can see it's hovering around 2 kilohertz. Sorry, 3 kilohertz, 2.9 kilohertz, which is about right. There's a little bit of flutter in there. Obviously the tape deck is not new, it's old, it's been around for quite some time, but that's within acceptable limits. If I had a true wow and flutter meter and I put that on there, we would see the needle going backwards and forwards quite a percentage. But I would say that that kind of frequency shift is within range. If it's between 2.9 and 3 something, roughly like that all the time, it's not going, you know, that's true wow and so on. So I'm pretty sure that that one's okay. Let's just take that tape out and pop it back into here and try the same on this one. So we can see again there 2.9, 2.9. Now obviously I can't adjust the speed because there's only one motor, and that's one of the things with these, I would say, I'm going to say cheaper mechanisms, but mechanisms that employ less dedicated mechanics and so on, and electronics to the actual playback. It's a cheaper mechanism. It's got one motor. That one motor is driving 4 flywheels. There's an awful lot of mechanical tolerances involved in that. So the fact that it's actually playing nearly right is perfectly acceptable. If this was a mechanism that had a different motor for each deck, then I'd be a little bit more concerned. But it's one motor driving 4 flywheels. There's a lot of stuff involved, but it's constant. It's not really wowing, you know, up and down, up and down. It's a tiny little bit of flutter, and as we've listened to music with it, it's almost imperceptible to the human ear. Right, let's just do a final tidy up because we're pretty sure that's okay. But before we do that, let's just try a CD into it. Let's make sure it plays back a CD. Let's get our test music from that. Now, when I was sorting this out, making sure that I got this right, one of the things that I found was a little bit odd was the fact you couldn't select disc. You can select each individual disc, but you couldn't select the tray to get to the thing until I discovered a button down here called disc skip. So you basically press that once and it skips onto the next disc. So I'm going around here to find disc 1, which is there. So I can pop that into there and then press this one on there, and then that goes round and should start playing disc 1. There we go. Okay, we've got it all back together. Final test that we've got to make is to make sure that it is actually recording. So I've got a disc in there in disc 1. Let's pop that in there, and we'll put a blank tape. Well, it's not a blank tape as such. It's a test tape, so it's got various bits of things on it. So we'll pop that in, and we're playing CD1. Okay, so let's skip on a couple of tracks just to make sure it's, yeah. Now we'll put the tape in. We'll just do a quick rewind back to the beginning, then we know where we are. And put it into record. And hopefully we should be able to prove that the tape deck is recording okay as well. Just turn that down a little bit. It's been an interesting delve into this old Sony HCD, whatever it's called. I can't remember the model of it. Where are we? HCD-XG500. Good old machine. Obviously it's got you know, its functionality of the day. And it's got various features on it for things like doing DJ work, and there's even a DJ mix microphone and stuff, bits and pieces. I haven't got the manual, so I don't know how all of that works, but anyway, it looks fancy, it does the job, and the customer's happy to have, or will be happy hopefully, to have it all fixed and working again. So we've now done that. Let's stop the disc, stop the tape, rewind it back to the beginning, put it back into play. Tape B. Yeah. So, looks like we're done. Playing back the recording okay, which is good. So, pretty pleased with the way that this has worked and done. A few little issues, but we managed to get there in the end. Hope you've enjoyed it. Thanks very much for watching. See you again soon.